I have just put the finishing touches and just signed probably my biggest oil painting ever. And I have to say, thank fuck it's over. So this year I'll be participating in the Affordable Art Fair. And the strategy that the lovely team at the Affordable Art Fair have suggested to me was to diversify the size of the paintings that I was going to take. And seeing as I already had a few medium-sized paintings, shadows going crazy, ranging around 70 by 50 centimeters. And I also had some smaller paintings at about 20 by 25 centimeters. So I needed and was excited to do something a lot bigger. Now I've been an oil painter for about 10 years now, and I mostly stick to medium-sized canvases, and that's for a number of reasons. First and probably foremost, I have a limited amount of space here. Large paintings require quite a large amount of space to not only to work on them, but then to store them as well. And being an artist that's working in a former bedroom, paintings over a certain size are a presence in the room. Secondly, they can be expensive, and I have a limited budget for art supplies. And thirdly, I think just from personal experience, really large paintings tend to be a bit more difficult to sell because they're quite an investment for someone looking to buy. So I started working on this in late January, and it was due in early April. So there was a little bit of a time crunch, which was a little bit scary, but I really wanted to do something larger than I normally do because I wanted something kind of like a hero piece for my booth at the Affordable Art Fair. Something that might catch people's eye and draw them over to my stand. And also I thought it would be fun to try something different. As I said before, that I normally don't work this big, but the two times that I can recall going close to this size, firstly was a painting I did years ago that I titled Unready Made, which was a painting I did for a competition. And in the little 50-word summary that they give you to describe the painting, I left it with this description. But that painting was slightly smaller. It was 75 by 105 centimeters. And then the only other piece of mine that I can recall being similar size to this was my entry into 2023's Brisbane Portrait Prize, which I'm proud to say made the finals. Didn't win, made the finals, which was a painting of cricketing superstar Grace Harris. And I don't exactly remember how large it was. I think it was either exactly the same size or slightly smaller. So the general theme of the artwork that I have taking into the art fair is basically the city of Brisbane. So I was on the lookout for something that would make a vaguely grandiose painting. I had a few ideas, but I knew I wanted to choose a building. I'm not entirely sure why. I think buildings to me are maybe slightly more striking and noticeable than a natural landscape, but which building to choose? I obviously wanted something that was striking and beautiful, but also subtle, because I think that's a good description of Brisbane, really. Other cities have architecture that's really obviously beautiful, like Melbourne, for instance. There are just these gorgeous buildings everywhere. But in Brisbane, you might walk past a building and not really take notice of it. But if you do take notice of it, you realize, oh, that's a really nice old-fashioned building. And so the one I eventually chose was Central Station. And I think I actually chose really well. I'll give myself a pat on the back there. But I think I chose well because as I was painting this, I was posting quite a lot of updates to social media. And I noticed a lot of people, in fact, people I know that live in Brisbane, saying firstly that they really liked the painting, but that they didn't recognize where it was. In fact, I put a little question in one of my posts asking if anyone recognized it, but it was quite early on in the process. So I thought, oh, maybe as I paint a little bit more, people will recognize it. But even as I painted more and more, people still seemed to not really recognize it, which hopefully wasn't an indictment of how well I captured it. But that fact about Brisbane is something that is a shame, but also something that I love about the city. We're under the radar beautiful. You know, we're the girl next door that has glasses and braces and no one notices, but then we take our glasses off and the main protagonist realizes that we were a supermodel all along. So the first thing I had to do was select a canvas. I just bought a pre-stretched canvas, which I do most of the time anyway. I normally think they're basically just as good as stretching your own, but I wasn't quite sure what size I wanted. I came to two sizes that I like the look of and then chose the larger one. Okay, I went the bigger one. Because I always go too small. I think it's a big canvas and then I get it back into the studio and it's like, it's not that big. So I went big. And when I got it home, I realized how big it seemed in my room. It like takes up a whole section of it. Like if you lay it on the floor, it's the whole floor. But next I gessoed and sanded the surface, because if there's one thing about pre-stretched canvases is that they tend to have a little bit of a tooth to them. And personally I prefer a slightly smoother surface to lay paint onto. And then next I did something that I literally have never done before, and that was to do a blue underpainting. I usually use much more of a typical burnt sienna underpainting, but for this I used Prussian blue. And the reason I did that firstly was to try something new. But my thinking was also that an underpainting helps give a sort of overall hue to the finished painting. And I thought a blue colour would help me make some really cool, complex colours in the shadows because of the warm, yellow ochre colours of the actual building. And so I left that to dry and then added a grid. Using a grid to get an accurate underdrawing is pretty stock standard for me, but sometimes I notice I get carried away with the drawing process. So this time I really tried to only draw the necessary parts of the drawing. So my strategy layers-wise was basically to add as much detail into the first layer as I possibly could, using the grid and basically doing heaps of little pieces of it day by day, essentially going top to bottom. And then going over it with a second layer to clean up some of the details. And then a third layer on top of that to make sure all the tones and the colors were exactly how I wanted them. I did this sort of single layer heavy painting because it's relatively fast. And seeing as there was a due date and a little bit of time pressure, I didn't have ages to finish it. And then also it's a good approach for a size canvas that's larger than I'm used to, because with large canvases, I imagine it's quite easy to lose sight of the whole painting. I found that when I first started doing medium-sized canvases after doing small when I started, you can get sucked into doing the small details first, and then you lose track of the amount of space that you have. And not only the space, but the tones and the values of the other parts that you've already done. You know, you're not seeing the trees for the forest, or what's the other one? Standing too close to the elephant or something like that. Right, so I've got I guess it's like the first layer done. I'm not going to do like a million layers. I'm just going to touch it up from here. It's pretty much done. I realize I haven't been filming a lot. I haven't done any vlog check-ins like this. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I definitely will need to do the sky again because I've got a bunch of smudges all over it. And it probably looks good from a distance right now, but up close it looks all messy and disgusting. Throughout this painting, I managed to film a lot of vertical content. And actually I did something that I normally don't do, which I already mentioned, which is to show progress videos. I think I never really did progress videos because, I don't know, I felt like vertical content needed to have a completely finished painting in it. Like it needed to be this spectacular reveal of a finished work. But something I noticed is that a lot of artists on social media, particularly really successful artists on social media, absolutely make content with like half-finished work. I think also I struggle with uploading multiple vertical videos of the same work because I don't want to like annoy people with my with my content. But again, learning from more successful artists, they just let it fly. They just don't worry about annoying people and just let all their content go, because a lot of it will not get to your whole audience, to all of your followers or whatever. But having a larger painting definitely suits that type of content, where you can upload like a little bit of progress here and there and show what you did for that day. So I think I'd like to do a little bit more of it, to be honest. Okay, I'm calling it. It's the last day today. I'm kind of sick of looking at it, to be honest. I don't know how many days it's been. I really should have done that. Should have counted how many days I've spent working on it so I could have a little snappy. It's day 37. Water's running out. Today, I'm going to redo the sky. It needs to be done. It's got too many patches and bumps and bruises all over it, and I'll just go over it with blue again. Maybe something... Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud now. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this guy. Stop talking. So people sometimes ask me how long I take to finish a painting. And more often than not, it's funny because I will basically have no idea. I can kind of lock in pretty hard and just sort of lose track of the days, which I definitely did with this painting. It's only through the dates of the videos, like the metadata on the videos, that I can say I started this on the 27th of January and finished it on the 25th of March. So that ends up being about, let me count the days. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why am I not just adding up the month? So that ends up being about... So you're 60 days, and then I probably worked on it for about 6 to 8 hours a day. So that is a total of, I'll average it to 7 hours a day, 400-ish hours, roughly, very roughly, because I did take a few days off here and there, and I did take one weekend, but other than that, I worked 7 days a week. But yeah, it's quite a lot of hours, I'm noticing. But there we go, finito, finished. I really enjoyed painting on this large canvas, so I think I might do some more of it. I'll definitely have to find a solution to storage. I think maybe I can take the painting off the stretcher, or not stretch it at all and just roll it up. But yeah, anyway, so of course this painting will be for sale at the Affordable Art Fair in Brisbane if you would like to come along and buy it. But if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.